Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I am Agi Keramidas and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I am interviewing leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week, every Monday and Thursday. In today's show, I'm overjoyed and honored to be speaking with Doran. Stephen, you are a peak performance coach with a background in competitive sports and psychology. Early in your career, you were a London firefighter for 7 years. During that time, you also started and operated several businesses and built a property portfolio. You are the author of the #1 best-selling book, Burn the Bullsh. You are an international speaker and an NLP trainer. And you actually have trained directly with the original founders of NLP. You have been recognized for your work within the community and your charitable work on repeat young offenders projects. And your mission is to help as many people as you can to unlock their potential and create the life they deserve and to be happy. Stephen, welcome to Personal Development Mastery. I'm really thrilled and honored to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, Aggie. Thanks for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be on, and I really appreciate your time and appreciate what you're doing in creating this podcast and sharing it with people and spreading some light, I guess.
Thank you, and I appreciate it because I know you're not doing many podcasts, so it's great to have you here, man. Thank you. So, Stephen, shall we start with some elements of your journey that has brought you here? So, if I were to ask you to pick one milestone moment in your life, which one would you choose? Which one would you choose?
Oh, this is where I become a terrible guest because I find it really difficult to answer some of these questions.
Can I ask you another one? Then maybe it will help you warm up. So, okay. When did you first discover personal development?
When did I first discover? Okay, yeah. So, as a youngster, teenager, I really struggled with my mental well-being. It's not really something that I speak about much because it's not relevant now, but I really struggled with anxiety and these type of afflictions. And so I used to go to the library and pick up books on confidence or happiness, or so I started reading very young. And then I also found that when I got into business, there were a lot of the business events that I attended had a lot of crossover with personal development. And that's when I came into contact with some of the big personal development speakers almost by accident. And then it's a bit of a drug. Something makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. So you do some more. So I read some more. I mean, even now to this day, I still read at least 20 hours a week, generally in psychology, philosophy, and these things. I just find the world fascinating. I find the mind fascinating, and so I guess the journey started way back then when I was a teenager and started to become aware of my feelings and aware that I didn't necessarily always want to feel the way that I was feeling. So looking for a way to change that. And I remember being quite shy. And I remember specifically one memory from being a young teenager, being in the library, and I picked up this book on confidence. But I was too shy to take it to the counter to check it out. So I spent hours in the library reading the book. Sat in the corner because I was embarrassed to take this book on how to be confident to the desk to take it out, which is an interesting, when I look back now, it's almost silly, but it reminds me how far I guess that I've come. Mm-hmm. And also where some people are at. When you interact with people, it helps you to relate and understand sometimes where people are at, because we all spend a generalization, but a lot of people spend too much time worrying about what people think when those people either don't care or they're simultaneously worrying about what you think anyway. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of time and energy can be wasted doing that.
I remember reading in your book somewhere that you are a part-time teacher and a full-time student, and
Yes.
what you're telling me about reading, what did you say, 20 hours a week? That's amazing. Lifelong learning. That's what I look
Without
at
a
it.
doubt, yeah. I think the biggest mistake someone can make is to assume that they know the answers. And I'm very open with the fact that I don't know the answers to much. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And the more complicated and intriguing and fascinating the world becomes, because there are so many variables and so many different things and so many different perceptions of reality, but not really many ways about actually getting to objectivity. Everything's so subjective. How can anyone really be right or wrong? And what is really right or wrong? Does right or wrong even exist? But yes, I don't want to go too far off piece, but you get my point. And this is where, again, I just find it fascinating to understand the mind, to understand different views of the world, as many different views as possible, to try and make some sense of it, because it's just so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Socrates, since you mentioned philosophy, and we're probably going to go deep in this conversation anyway, so might as well start early. Socrates, who was the father of philosophy in many ways, said that I know one thing, that I don't know anything. So the moment we realize our ignorance is the moment of our illumination.
Yes.
When did you come across NLP?
NLP, I came across NLP when I was reading some of Tony Robbins' earlier books, and he mentioned NLP quite a bit, and neuro-linguistic programming, and a lot of the methods that he used, and certainly a lot of the methods he still uses, are some iteration of NLP techniques. So I just wanted to go back and discover some of these grassroots principles. And the more I studied NLP, so I originally just went to some foundation weekends to find out a little bit more. And then I was grabbed, so I did the practitioner and then the master practitioner, and then I became a support facilitator where I learned. And then I was like, do you know what? There's some good stuff here. I want to become a trainer. So I became a trainer. And I don't know how long ago this was now. This was my first introduction to NLP is probably around 8 or 9 years ago. I've been a trainer for 5 years. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy everything in personal development. I enjoy being a part of somebody's journey. I feel like I share their successes with them, or their achievements with them, and their growth with them. And I think once you get to a certain point yourself, and not before, it's nice to help other people on their journey to reach their point, or where it is that they wish to go.
Is there a clear line? Because you said not before. You can help other people, but not before. Where is that line?
Absolutely not before. I think there's, with all the best intentions, I think there's a lot of people that want to help and want to give of themselves, which is amazing and fantastic. But I do think it's important not to do that until you've sorted your own house out. I guess there's no point in trying to help all of these people when your life's falling apart. There's no point trying to do, because it's self-defeating. It doesn't work. And I give the example in my book, which you may have heard anyway, in the personal development world. It's like when you're on an aeroplane, if the masks drop down, they don't say, right, go and help everyone put their mask on. They say, put your mask on before you help anyone else, because you're useless if you can't breathe. And I think it is the same in life. If you are struggling in your own life, then it's fine to just step back and sort your stuff out. And then once your stuff's in order, it doesn't have to be perfect, nothing is. Once your stuff's in order, then you can go out and start helping others in that order. But yeah, it's funny that you picked up on it. I'm a very big believer in that.
I understand it. And what you're saying about putting your life in order, yes, it's I totally get it. How is that connected, what you just said, with the concept of congruence?
With the concept of, well, it's a
Let's
loaded
talk.
question.
Let's
It's
talk about
entirely
congruence.
connected. It's entirely connected. Well, congruence is one of my personal values. So one of the things that is most important to me is congruence, and that is walking your walk, talking your talk. Walking your talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and I don't think it's intentional, but a lot of times things can be incongruent. If I'm telling you, and I don't want to cast aspersions, and I'm certainly not attempting to dig anyone out or undermine anyone. As I said, a lot of this is with the best intentions, but if I'm sharing how to be happy, but I'm not really happy, then that's incongruent. Or if I'm, to give you a more obvious example, I give sometimes, it's like if I'm a personal trainer trying to help people lose weight, but I'm overweight, that's incongruent. And I get that you can have the knowledge, and not have applied it, but then at the same time, the application is the key part. And if you don't know that application, then you shouldn't be trying to roll it out until you've done it yourself. So congruence to me is doing what you say. And again, nobody's perfect. I accept that and I appreciate that. But I do feel that there's a lot of people that, in every sort of field, especially in personal development, but maybe it's more prominent to me because I'm in that industry, where it's like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to be financially successful. But if you dig through it, it's like, well, this is a lot of the time it's coming from people who are not financially successful. And I'm not judging, but how can I sell you financial success, or even worse, try and become financially successful from selling you financial success? That's the model which I certainly don't approve of. And like I say, in the same way, I can't, or I shouldn't, I personally wouldn't preach about being healthy if I'm doing things which are categorically unhealthy. So I tend to keep my mouth shut on subjects that I don't know the answer on, and that's quite a lot of subjects. But so yeah, it's congruence for me is really it's doing what you say and saying what you do, and those things lining up. And I think it's really important for people to trust you, and for you to be able to trust yourself. And I don't think people do it necessarily on purpose. I think, again, people do it with the best intention. Also, look, if I'm studying personal development, for example, then I get really excited about all of these new tools and I just want to share them. I get it. And I think that's a lot of what happens. I don't think people are necessarily purposefully going out and do something. The question that I ask, if I step back and try and look objectively, is, well, what is the outcome going to be there as intended, or maybe not? Maybe it's not going to be as effective. So yeah,
I get it. I understand it. And even though one could argue that we have, or some people, we need to start somewhere. We can't reach a point and then start teaching or helping others. We have to grow along the way. But I think it's a matter of recognizing our limitations and not pretend that we are someone we're not. And trying to teach to people things that we haven't achieved. Just because we read it in a book doesn't mean that we know what it is about.
Yes, well, exactly that. And I also appreciate, I mean, that's a good way of wording it, to recognize your limitations. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you can't share things, but maybe even just sharing them with integrity, saying that this is something I read. And I don't know for sure, but if it will work, but maybe this will help. Just sharing it with integrity and not claiming or proposing to know something that you don't necessarily know. And also, look, you learn a lot from teaching. You learn so much from it. You start to understand and absorb content in a way that, in my experience, you never did as a student necessarily, because now you really have to understand it in a greater depth. So there's also an importance to teaching and sharing if you've got something of value. I just think like you said, knowing your limitations and maybe pre-framing something that this is what I've read, this is where I read it, assessing credibility as well. So if just because you read something, like, where did you read it? Because I read on Facebook, if I can hold my breath for 10 seconds and I don't have COVID, I'm like, okay, cool. Is that credible? Like, where, and unfortunately we're in an interesting time where people don't seek to verify sources or things can be a little bit hearsay. So my question, if anybody poses something, is like, okay, cool, where did you hear it from? It's not to challenge them, it's just because I want to research it further, and understand it myself, and also get an idea of if it's going to be valuable, or if it's maybe something I should not put too much time on.
It's using our critical thinking. Unfortunately, many people, if not most people, will just accept something because they read it somewhere, or they saw it on TV or whatever it is, without really realizing that, it's the concept of the bias, the confirmation bias, that we tend to find more information that actually verifies what we already believe on. So
without a shadow of doubt. And I mean, there's one thing that we're looking for information to capitalize on what we already believe, just to support the beliefs we have, which is a dangerous game. But also we're in an interesting time where, let's say I have a belief, and I watch a video on YouTube or social media that supports that belief. The algorithm now works out, okay, this is what he believes, this is what he's into. Now it's going to show me another video and another video. And you can go down a rabbit hole where suddenly your world, at least your digital world, is surrounded by all of these people that believe the same thing. And it's a very interesting, I think we're losing or it loses some of the challenge. People challenge it. It's important to challenge views, to debate, to like you said, critical thinking is extremely important. And but psychologically it makes sense. We all want to understand, and when we don't understand, we scratch for a meaning. And some people can't not have a meaning or a reason or or a logic, whether that logic is illogical or not. So yeah, it's very interesting, but certainly in this digital age, I think people can, like I say, fall down the rabbit hole of reinforcing beliefs that they have, because they're suddenly only interacting with people and content that shares that belief.
I suppose you've watched the social dilemma.
Yeah.
It actually, it says that was my key takeaway when I watched it. I was shocked in a way, because it's so revealing that you get more of what you believe. So you really, if you have if your vision is pointing in one direction, then the social media will give you much more of that, and then you will not hear the opposite opinion at all, so you will believe more and more. That's so scary not to have
scary. I mean, and of course, I think one of the, just a sentence in that documentary that stood out to me, which resonated, was that they're not going to get worse at it, they're only going to get better at this. And I thought, well, it's true, isn't it? The technology is only going to refine, and I do think eventually things will change, but I think it will be a long time. But as you know, and as we discussed prior to this call, I'm very limited on social media. I don't come on much. I don't look at much. I like to keep my mind free to explore all different avenues of thought, and I don't feel that social media is a great platform for me to do that. It's got some amazing sides to it in terms of keeping in touch with people and sharing and so forth, but I just think with everything there has to be a level of awareness and understanding of what it is that you're interacting with. And yes, very interesting how people can go into some sort of echo chamber and just hear back their own sort of beliefs. And you can understand then, when you step back and look at some of the things that are happening at the moment, how people reach a certain point, and I'm not going to be too specific because I don't want to rile anybody up. I'm just not for the conflict. But I can understand how certain conspiracy theories or whatever can grow and become almost real to a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. If you start getting interested in that, you will find more and more information to substantiate that, and before you know it, you're looking at. Anyway, let's not talk about. Let's leave that out of the conversation.
It's a minefield. Yes,
it's I will remain with what we were talking about, the beliefs and all this, because the beliefs are actually what constitute our reality, the way that we perceive the world, because there is no one universal reality. You have your own reality, I have my own reality, and it's all based on our beliefs, our mindsets, our mental filters. So do you want to share your thoughts on that, expand on how our reality is our own unique reality and not a reality?
Of course, yeah. I mean, this is. I'm smiling because you're saying exactly what I think, and I don't think any of us have a real idea of reality because everybody just has a subjective view.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard an interesting example in a book I was reading recently, and the guy said he was speaking about drawing water from a well, and it's in the book, it's a debate between a philosopher and a young student. And the philosopher says to the young student, he says, "Have you ever drank water from a well? I'm not sure if you're maybe too young." And the student says, "No, I did many years ago from my nan's well in the summer. I remember the water was lovely and cool." Mm-hmm. And the philosopher said, "Well, actually, the water is the same temperature all year round. It's 18 degrees from the well. So whether it's the winter, whether it's the summer, the water in the well stays exactly the same. But if you drink it in the winter, it feels warm. And if you drink it in the summer, it feels cold." And he said that the water is objective. It doesn't change, but the environment around it is almost like the perceptions, they change. And I just thought it was a nice example of objectivity. Mm-hmm. And we do have this, every single thing in this world, we ascribe a meaning to it. And we don't interact with what's real. We interact with the meanings that we put on things. And this is where I'm very big on, if you are not happy with something, then you need to do one of two things. You need to either change what you do, or you need to change what you think. And what I mean is you need to either change the process, so the way that you're dealing with something or the things that you're doing, or you need to change the perception, so the way that you're looking at the thing that's bothering you. And I can't find many or any examples where one of those two things isn't applicable: change your process or change your perception. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't really think about their thinking, and this is something I try and drive home a lot when I'm talking at events or when I'm talking with clients. It's like, look, if you put a dog in this room, it will know it's inside the room. Fine, it can think. But it doesn't necessarily know that it knows that it's inside the room. It's not necessarily thinking about its thinking. As a human being, we're very blessed in that we have this ability, if we choose to step back and start thinking about our thinking, and then start thinking, well, is this serving me? Is this beneficial? Is this useful? But you have to, of course, prompt yourself to do that. So a big part of my belief is being able to not just think, but to analyze your thinking and decide, well, is this beneficial to me? Is this producing the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, the life that I want? And if not, what needs to change?
Stephen, you said that if one chooses to step outside of their thinking and think about their thinking, so why do you think people don't choose to do that? Why do they remain like the dog, being aware but not thinking about the thinking?
I guess sometimes it's just a case of awareness. For a lot of people, it's being aware that you actually have that option. You can easily fall into a habit or a routine of being a certain way, and almost just being a product of our environment or an effect. And I guess if you're talking cause and effect, a lot of people are at effect. We end up in the job that we're in because that was the first job or career path we took since school, and and everything's just your environment sort of pushing you to here and there. Where I'm very big on stepping back and being at cause, but look, that's a big deal. It's not easy to step and to go meta and to start thinking about, well, what do I want and how do I get there and what do I need to change? And these are big things. I'm simplifying it, but they're still big things. I think for a lot of people, it to summarize what I'm saying, I think it starts with awareness. It's given them the reflection, helping them to reflect and realize, actually, I can change this. And then if they then choose not to, I guess it would be fear.
Is it like the red pill, taking the red pill and
Very much.
getting unplugging, even for a little while? Yeah, even though I think once you unplug, it can't be for a little. When you really unplug, you can't go back in. You would be so miserable going back in. It's you've seen what is out there.
Well, this is, and this is where I'm very big on there is no right or wrong, because take the Matrix, a brilliant film because it's so apt, really. But would he go back and take the other pill? Could you blame him if he did? Sometimes ignorance can be bliss, and sometimes the rabbit hole can be challenging or difficult. This is where, look, if you're choosing the blue pill or you're choosing the red pill, that's fine. If you're not choosing, then in my opinion, that is a choice in itself. So as long as if you're choosing ignorance, fine. If you're choosing to be ignorant to certain things because they don't benefit you, then I understand. But if you're just being ignorant, then it's different.
I think that's the key point there, because choosing to be ignorant means that you are aware of the alternative and you choose not to go there. But
so
I think ignorance in a way implies that you are not aware of the alternative.
I guess.
So let's talk a bit more about beliefs and in particular limiting beliefs. Or bullshit beliefs, as you
bullshit beliefs.
Yes. So that's the topic of your book, anyway, which is an amazing book. Actually, I read it a few years back when I first got introduced to you, and I reread it the last few days, as a refresher and do some preparation for our conversation today. Can you tell me a bit about the book, why you wrote it, what is the core reason behind it for you as Stephen?
Absolutely. But first, I'd like to say thank you for reading the book. And I say that because I've done podcasts. Obviously, I've done podcasts and interviews in the past with people like, okay, so you got a book and blah. And one of the questions I like to ask is, did you read it? and so many people were there that, well, no, I didn't read it. I'm like, okay, right. Cool. So, so you want to talk to me about the book, but you didn't want to read the book. So I'm truly very grateful that you've taken your time to read the book. So the book is. It's looking at how we form our beliefs, and again going back to that awareness. So how do we form our beliefs? How do we filter them? How do we distort them, delete them, generalize them to come to this idea that we have of reality? And then also, how are they affecting us? Because we find that for most people, what's generally holding them back from what they want is a belief about their ability to get what they want. So if we can adjust and amend those beliefs, then we can access a lot more. So I wanted to give a book which was practical and interactive, not overcomplicated in a way that people couldn't follow it, but gave them enough of an understanding. Because I'm very big on, look, you can study the roots of a tree, which is fine, but also it's important to pick the fruit if you want to enjoy it. And so I wanted to give people the fruit, I guess, with a little bit of the root. I've never said that before. I'm not sure if I'll say it again. But also what was really important was the exercises throughout the book. So whereas in my experience and having read a lot of personal development books, I could find that, and I'm sure nobody else does this, right? But I could pick something up and read it and go, that's a great idea, then put it down and do nothing about it.
No one does that. Of course.
No, nobody. Of course, nobody else would ever do that. But I found that I was doing it. And, and at the time, it's like, oh, this is life-changing. This is fantastic. This is brilliant. I put it down and do nothing. And then, of course, nothing happens. Nothing changes. And then it becomes theoretical entertainment. It's like just going to the cinema and enjoying it and coming out and you're back to your life. So, which is fine if you're reading personal development for entertainment. But a lot of people are reading it to develop. So I thought, well, let's hold people accountable. So let's force them to implement this stuff throughout the book. And So I refined some exercises and some things which really worked for me, and put them in there, and hopefully people that read it. I mean, this is the other question: when somebody says they read my book, I'm like, okay, cool. Did you do the exercises? You know, because there's two parts. I read the book, yeah, cool. Did you do the exercises? Well, no. Okay, well, you know, maybe you should. Maybe you should, because then you'll get the true experience that I was trying to set out, or the power of the exercises.
Yeah, and I don't know what you think, but we can't really change a limiting belief which is in the subconscious, isn't it? We can't just change it by reading a book, no matter how much we want to change it at purely an intellectual level. We have to go deeper, we have to go emotional, we have to go, and there are actually two challenges that you have in your book that I wanted to discuss with you. I want you to maybe explain them to me and to the listener, just their importance, because for me they are immensely powerful, because they take you out of the comfort zone. It's not about reading the book, and you know what you said earlier about, I was joking, of course, that reading books and not taking the action on that. I know I've done it I thought I was into personal development for 20 years, but I realized that I was not. It's, you know, that differentiation between self-development and shelf-development. So I would develop the shelves, read the books, and do nothing with it, which is it's useless in a way.
It is. Yeah. This is where early on in the book I said, you know, we all say this old saying of knowledge is power, but it's not. You know, knowledge is potential, but knowledge applied is power.
Yeah, it's common misconception that knowledge is power, and people stuff their minds with books and they do nothing about that. Right, since I mentioned it, then I will go to I want to ask you about those two challenges. So one of them was the one that you burst into a spontaneous celebration in public for long enough. I think you say 10 seconds or something like that, long enough for people to notice you, and that they know that the person cheering and shouting, it's you, and actually turn and look at you in a public place, which is... I will read what you have said there, because it is the way that you put it there it really resonated within me very much. And you said by doing that, you dare to break free from the prison of self-conscious restraint. So do you want to share the exercise in your own words with us and talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. I think if you can master this exercise, I mean, it's such a, like you said, it's such a powerful exercise, and this tends to be the first exercise that people go, "Oh, no,
I can't do that." Yeah.
And what they say to me is, you know, I'm reading your book. Oh, you have just, you know, have you done the exercise? No, but I'm going to come back to it. You know, I'm going to come. No, this isn't how it works. You know, but this, I like this saying that how you do one thing is how you do everything, and that is a perfect example. It's like, I've got this big important thing to do, but it worries me a little bit, so I'm gonna put it off and procrastinate. And when you learn to face those stretches, let's call them a stretch. It's a stretch really, because it's not in the comfort zone. When you learn to face those stretches, that's a skill that you can apply to loads of other things in life. So of course, the exercise involves going into public place, bursting into a celebration, not with your friends, not with your phone, not with an excuse, you know, just because several things happen. One, we learn a magic formula for how to just get over ourselves and do the things and do something, and get over our beliefs about what people think or what people will do or what people think of us. Because they won't, I mean, the biggest, I guess this is the biggest, one of the biggest shames, let's call it, is that so many people will spend their life not truly living their life because they're worried about what people think. And the truth is, the catch is that people don't care. most people. And even if they did, then why care? But people don't care. And what a lot of people have found when they've done the exercise is, you know, they're going to central London or they're going to all these busy places and they've done this sort of 10-second celebration and you know, so people will look and then they just carry on. Nobody cares. Very rare that anyone will really even acknowledge it, because everybody's is caught in their own bubble. And one of the sayings that resonates with me is that hell on earth would be to meet the person that you could have been. And I think, like, if you went through your whole life and at the end of your life you had to face the person you could have been, if you didn't succumb to those feelings of fear when you wanted to do something, or that fear of what people would think about you when you had this challenge, maybe it's public speaking, or maybe it's following your dream career, or blogging, or having a podcast, or doing all of these things where you can share some beautiful things with the world, but you don't do them. You know, there's an old saying about going through a graveyard, and I've done this as an exercise with one of my old teams of staff. I took my whole team of staff to a graveyard, and I said, look, you know, there's a lot of people here who didn't, and this is quite heavy, so I apologize, but who didn't necessarily reach their full potential, and look, now it's too late, and you're not guaranteed. There's definitely a big conception that we're guaranteed this certain amount of time in life. I'm going to live till I'm 70 or 80 or whatever, and then I'm going to die. Well, that's not true. You know, you could die tomorrow. And the shame is, when you're in the cemetery, you think, oh, well, what songs didn't we hear? What books didn't we read? Because these people had this stuff in them, and they didn't let it out. When you were saying before, you know, about people reading all of this stuff and not applying it, in my head, I actually thought to myself, well, what a shame, because these people are reading all this stuff, and now they've got all this knowledge, but they're not giving it to the world. You know, they're not sharing it with us. So this exercise, it seems very simple and it seems very silly, and it may almost seem a bit jovial, which, yes, sure, is me to an extent. I like things to be funny or enjoyable, but it's so much bigger than that. It is about changing. It's like, learn this formula, you can change your life. Learn how to face fear, because there's this conception that it's about not being afraid, which isn't true. It's not about not being afraid. I think it was John Wayne who said, like, courage is being afraid but saddling up anyway, or something like that. You know, it's being courageous. It's not being afraid. There's a I like the saying that I used to give out this quote at my public speaking seminars. It's like, there's two types of public speakers. There's ones that get nervous and liars. You know, because it's okay. It's normal to get nervous. It's, what do we do? How do we overcome? How do we learn a strategy to face and overcome those nerves? And also, you find that the more you stretch, the more you grow. Your stretch zone becomes your comfort zone, and then you need to push again. You know, first I might be nervous speaking in front of a room of 5 people. Fine. And then I'll get comfortable the more I do it. Then I can go 50 people. Then I get comfortable 100 people, 500, 500, you know, and it's about constantly growing and evolving. And in order to do that, you need to be able to push yourself into that stretch zone and need to know how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which is it's a skill that I try and develop in controlled environments constantly throughout my life. So one of them would be this random celebration. Another thing that I do is, and that I sometimes ask people and clients to do, is to have a cold shower. And I'm aware that there's plenty of health benefits and so on, and it's not because of that. What I'm asking you to do is to take something and look at this challenge of being under this freezing cold water and think to yourself, I don't want to do this, and feel these fears and whatever else, and then just do it. And, you know, because that's a magic formula in a controlled environment to learn the ability to do something you don't want to do, because you know that what you do want is on the other side of it, not just doing what you don't want to do for no reason. And it's the same in the gym sometimes, you know, and I put quite big meanings. I choose these intentionally, but I put big meanings on things. Like when I'm exercising and it gets tough, then I start saying to myself, okay, cool. Well, if you give up here, where else are you going to give up? Are you going to give up in your relationship? Are you going to give up on your business? Are you going to, because giving up is giving up. And if you are cultivating this habit of giving up when things are uncomfortable or tough, then that's going to affect you everywhere in your life. You know, and I'm pushing really hard in the gym because I'm scared if I don't push hard, you know, I'm going to become something I don't necessarily want to be. And I do believe in life that you can either find an excuse or you can find a way. It's very easy, and this is, like I say, is that you see it with this exercise, with this chapter. Somebody goes, okay, now I'm going to come back to it because when I was reading it, I was in the office, I was around certain people, there's always, fine. And there's loads of great excuses for everything, and there's loads of great reasons to do. And which ones you choose is up to you. It's up to you. Am I going to find an excuse, or am I going to find a way? You could have gone outside and just walked into the street and just done it. And that's my recommendation is just fucking do it. So if there's something you want to do, don't get too deep into the semantics of it. Just do it, figure it out within reason. I'm not saying like go and quit your job and or whatever without some level of thought, but don't overthink and don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah, and this is it's harmless as an exercise, and because you said it is simple, I will say it looks simple, but anyone that says no, it's very easy, I can do it, I would challenge someone to actually do it, because it's
simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
It's not easy. Yes.
Yeah, simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy, and that's the key. I think that's the key in life, is make things simple, but it doesn't mean you have to make it easy. And that's a big misconception. It's like, look, the exercise is simple. It's 10 seconds. It's not gonna take up time of your life. But I'm not saying it's easy. It's not supposed to be easy.
Thank you for describing it in your own words. Now there is. Let me tell you about the other one that struck a chord within me. It's similar in a way. It's the one that you called fearless friendliness. When you go in a train or something like that, and you just say hi to random people, and with only the intention of being friendly, saying hi and moving on. But again, there are similarities with that, because it involves the fear of judgment that you may get from other people. So do you want to share your thoughts on this challenge as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you say, it's very similar in a lot of ways, but it's overcoming that fear of judgment, that fear of rejection, that fear of looking silly, or whatever you want to think of it as. And it's also quite empowering, because if you do it and you do it properly, and you do it enough, you soon begin to realize how amazing it is that you never want to stop doing it. Because you meet so many interesting and new people, and it fills you with so much energy. It's a fantastic discovery, I guess. So the first one's, it's overcoming, it's finding a strategy to overcome these fears. The second one is that, but it's also getting some feedback from it and realizing, look, it's not going to be the perfect feedback all the time, because some people, when you approach them and start talking to them, because of the world that we live in and the beliefs that people hold, might be apprehensive, or might question your intention, or might think that you've got some agenda, and maybe you're trying to chat them up or sell them something, or con them, I don't know. But that's fine. But then that's feedback, but the more you carry on and do it, the more you realize actually a lot of people here want that connection, and they enjoy it. So it's giving you a bit more real world interaction and experience, and getting over those feelings about yourself. You're finding these conversations where people are, I said it before, but where people are worrying about what people think of them. The other person's so busy worrying about what you think of them, it doesn't, they're not even considering it so much. And who cares? You should be unashamedly you anyway. Like, who cares? If somebody doesn't want to talk to you, that's fine. Move on. Next person. Hi, how you doing? What you up to? You having a nice morning? I go for a walk every day with a close friend of mine, and we say hello to so many people in the morning. But now we start to know some, because we've been doing this for years. Now it's people. It's the same. It's so strange when we see the same people every day sometimes, and we don't even acknowledge them. It's a strange culture which I can't understand. And you could be of value to that person one day, or they could be of value to you. You don't know who you're walking past on a day-to-day basis. It's very it would be a shame. It'd be a shame to miss that. If I'm going to sit on the train for 20 minutes anyway, Why not talk to the people around me on the train? Always, if I'm sitting on an aeroplane and there's somebody next to me, I will always make a point of speaking to them. And I've met some of the most interesting people I've ever met on aeroplanes. Some really, really fascinating people, and some that I've done business with, and some, and these are just random strangers. Really, one person became a travel buddy of mine. I just think we miss opportunities. You're sitting around opportunity everywhere all the time in your life, and it would be a shame to pass them by. Mm-hmm. Even if that is just an opportunity to say hi.
Yeah, I remember reading a book years ago that was saying that the moment your eyes meet someone else's eyes, it's meant to happen because each of you has a message for each other. So by denying that interaction completely and turning away, you miss something for sure, and you'll never know what it might have been.
And then it becomes a habit, and we normalize that habit. So I think some habits we just accept them because we've always done them, but it doesn't mean that it's the best way it can be.
Thank you for listening to this first part of the interview with Stephen Doran. Tune in to the next episode, number 70, where Stephen discusses the philosophy and reality of happiness, the characteristics of an entrepreneurial mindset, empathy versus jealousy, and also how our sleep is directly correlated with our success. Thank you for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this podcast with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to gain access to exclusive content while supporting this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpad. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, or if you have any questions, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.